Growing up queer is a different experience. When there's nobody like you around and everyone else is going out, getting with people and doing what teenagers do, you quickly realise that your experience with sex and relationships is going to be different from theirs. With that realisation often comes pressure. Pressure to figure out how you're going to have your first kiss, have sex for the first time, or even have the feeling knowing that someone's attracted to you. It is far too easy for a 16-year-old to access a queer hookup app such as Grindr anonymously with no age verification and with the intention of experiencing the sex, love and romance that their peers are experiencing. This is often not the case. I know far too many people who have accessed these apps at a young age and been victims of grooming and sexual assault from predatory men. However, this goes completely unreported, undiscussed and normalised. This is trauma which affects the way these victims will view sex, love and relationships from that point onward, and if this sounds like you or someone you know, it is not something to be shrugged off. The societal hypersexualization of gay male relationships should not trickle into the youth of our country, and as a city we have a duty to care for young queer people and ensure they feel more comfortable discussing their feelings within their own community than with a stranger behind the screen.
I'm not going to stand here and lecture women on what it's like to experience these things, because they experience it every single day of their lives. I've seen it with my best friends, people who are like sisters to me. I've seen it with random women in clubs, just day-to-day life. It's harrowing. What I did want to do is speak directly to the guys. You are not a knight in shining armour for listening to someone. You're not a hero for having an awkward conversation with a friend because you've had to call out their behaviour. And I have to ask you this, is it worth letting that behaviour get worse rather than simply having that conversation? Pull them to the side, say something. I hear a lot of whataboutisms when it comes to this as well. You know, not all men. I understand it. Yeah, sure, it is not all men. But when someone comes to you and tells you their story, you hear these harrowing news incidents of what is happening to women in clubs, walking down the street, when people in positions of power are simply taking them from the streets. If your response to that is, well, it wasn't me, you really need to look inwards and you really need to think about exactly what it is you're adding to the conversation.
The reason I am writing this and sharing my story is to show you what can happen if you speak out about sexual violence. You deserve justice for what has happened to you. Rape and sexual assault are so underreported, and it should not be. It is a violation of our bodies, and the perpetrators need to be held responsible. It can be scary coming forward and seeking support. You may be examined physically, and you may have to face them again in court and relive that awful experience. But you may not always get the conviction you deserve. However, if the person does it again, this will be on their record, and maybe the next person will be successful in their conviction, all made easier by your earlier bravery. Roxy talks about her teenage years. When Roxy was 14 and in high school, I had my first boyfriend. A little context for this. A lot of girls in my year were claiming they had lost their virginity and bragged. I also claimed the same, even though it was a total lie. I was already an outsider. And I thought, if I told people I'd had sex, I would feel more accepted. My boyfriend was aware of this little lie too. One day, I went to his house to meet him for a date at the cinema. We went upstairs. He started to pressure me into having sex. I refused and tried to push him off. He wasn't much bigger than me, but he was stronger. He continued to push me onto the bed and tried putting his hands into areas I was not comfortable with. I managed to completely push him off and ran outside. I'm not sure why I did this, but I still went on the date with him. I waited outside until he was ready and I went to the cinema. I did break up with him shortly after, and it wasn't until several years later when I reflected on this that I realised what had happened to me and what could have happened. And I never reported this to the police, as years had passed by before I realised it was even an assault. Although the things I have experienced were terrible, I don't regret speaking out and seeking help. It is really important that whether you decide to report to the police or not, that you get professional help and support. Bottling up these kinds of emotions can have devastating effects on your physical and mental health, impacting you in later life. These experiences had an impact on my mental health, and I sought out counselling. Speaking openly about these experiences helped me process what happened and helped me regain my confidence. Thank you.
We want to take the opportunity today to reiterate our commitment in providing a safe place for women, both staff and students at the University of Salford. We don't take violence of any kind lightly, nor do we shy away from our responsibility, and we have taken actions to guarantee this with the Gender and Harassment New Policies and Mechanisms Group as a first initial step to achieve a safe and healthy environment for women. We also acknowledge that any action to challenge violence against women has to involve working change toxic masculinity and male cultures which make sexual violence appear acceptable. For this reason, we are championing the work of the White Ribbon organization within Salford. This charity is seeking to end male violence against women by engaging with men and boys to make a stand against violence.